All right, CNT125, Chapter 8. We're on the section on variable length subnet mask. I'm going to go over the concept of this so you understand how it works. This is something that CNT220, our networking people, will spend a bunch of time on. But we'll at least get the concept out so you understand the concept of how this works. With the traditional subnetting we've been spending time on, it does reduce the waste of IP addresses. However, all the subnets are equal size. And that actually can be inefficient sometimes. I might have leftover subnets, or I might have a subnet that, I've allocated 64 addresses, but I really only need like 40 or 50. There's a lot of wasted IP addresses in there. So variable length subnet mask allows you to subnet into smaller groupings. So I can actually take an existing subnet and break it into some smaller pieces for smaller parts, smaller departments, smaller sections of my network. So to do this, I actually figure out what I need, and I start with the largest subnet, allocate that, and then I work on the remaining space and break it into the next largest piece, then the next largest piece, then the next largest piece, and I kind of work my way down. So kind of like cutting a pizza in half for the first, and then the remaining half, maybe I cut it in half again, and then the remaining piece cut it in half again, and I start getting smaller and smaller pieces till I get what's needed for these various sections or departments or whatever. So the book example they had, they say that sales needs 120 hosts, accounting needs 58, HR needs 25, 6, 5, 2, and 2. So take and rank them from the largest to smallest. And what we'll do is we'll allocate the first subnet here. The remaining space would take care of these guys. So then we'll take that and break it into another piece for this one. For this group here, the remaining space will be here, and so forth. That's what we'll do. So we'll take the 192.168.10 network, and we'll break it into two subnets. So we'll borrow 1 bit to create two subnets. So we went from /24 to /25. The two subnets, the first one will allow us to have basically 127 IP addresses, enough to allocate for the 120 need. The remaining subnet, right here, 128 to 255, we are going to hold aside because we're going to use that for these down here. So we allocate the first one off, and then we take and we borrow another bit, borrow 1 more bit. So I'm not going to take that existing subnet, I'm going to break into the 2 more pieces. So I'm now up to /26. So I have a subnet for this group, and I have a second subnet over here. So the next subnet gets used for these guys. I then take the remaining space here. Okay, I hold on to it. I then borrow 1 more bit to allocate to this group here, this third HR. We can now allocate them the IP addresses they need. The remaining space we'll hold on to for the next group. We'll borrow an additional, in this case, 2 bits, 2 more bits. That's going to give us 4 subnets there. And now I can allocate subnet 4 here, subnet 5 here for these groups. 6 and 7 is still like holding on. That's extra space for the remaining subnets. Then I borrow an additional bit so that I can get 2 more subnets for these last groups, the 6 and 7, the 2 WAN links. And I still have some remaining space left behind. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You start with your largest and work your way down. And it's just record keeping to know that, okay, this subnet I'm allocating, then I'm going to borrow an additional bit for those subnets, break that apart, and so forth. And I just slowly work my way down. This allows for more efficient use of IP addresses, especially for networks that aren't changing a whole lot. This allows you to allocate them to the various groups. And this shows the breakdown the whole way down through and how they're being done. That's why I said it's almost like a piece of pizza or a pizza. I cut in half for the first group. This half over here I cut in half again for this group. Then I cut in half again for this group. And then I start kind of chopping my way down to allocate pieces to each of the sections of my network. This is something that CNT220 has spent a bunch of time on, to start allocating different blocks of subnets to different groups of users, different needs in the network.